Hello viewers, today I am before you to explain the musical terms Graha, Ansha and Nyasa. Actually, Graha, Ansha and Nyasa is the terminology of ancient Indian music. These three terms were the important lakshans among the 10 lakshans of ancient Jati Gayan. We may call these the characteristics or the principles of Jati Gayan. In ancient times, present Rag Gayan was not in vogue. Jati Gayan was in vogue instead of Rag Gayan. Jati Gayan was based upon 10 lakshans or the 10 principles which were mandatory to follow while singing. Graha, Ansha and Nyasa were the 3 lakshans among those 10 lakshans of Jati Gayan. Now many questions arise before explaining Graha, Ansha and Nyasa, like what is Jati Gayan? Secondly, what were the 10 principles or 10 lakshans laid down for singing of Jatis? And lastly, for what type of principles or exercises the terms Graha, Ansha and Nyasa stood for? So, instead of explaining directly the terms Graha, Ansha and Nyasa, we should know the base to which these terms belong to. So, first of all, we should know what is Jati Gayan. As I have stated earlier, Jati Gayan is not in vogue in the present day Hindustani music. Now, Rag Gayan is the base of Indian music. We can say Indian music is revealed through rags. But in the ancient times, Jati Gayan was in vogue. These jatis were produced from grams. In fact, in ancient music, a well-knitted system of gram, murchna and jati prevailed. Ancient authors Bharat in his Natya Shastra and Sharangdev in Sangeet Ratnakar have mentioned about gram, murchna and jati, etc. Though the term jati has not been defined directly in Bharat's Natya Shastra, yet the description about the characteristics of jati reveal the concept of jatis in the ancient times. According to him, the beautiful or the melodious composition of swar and varans was known as jati. Late Pandit Ravi Shankar, the great sitar maestro of the present era, has mentioned in his book, My Music, My Life. During the middle period of development of our music, very broadly from the 6th century BC to sometimes between the 5th and 7th centuries AD, the prominent musical foundation was the jati, which served the same function as the rag does now. That is, the jati was the basic melody type upon which compositions were constructed. A universal kind of proto-rag from which all later rags developed. The above said statement of Pandit Ravi Shankar depicts the concept of jatis very clearly. As stated earlier, in the ancient times, jatis were produced from grams. From the 2 grams, Shadaj and Madhyam, 18 jatis were produced. That is 7 jatis from Shadaj gram and 11 jatis from Madhyam gram. From the total 18 jatis of the 2 grams, 7 were Shuddh and the remaining 11 were Vikrit jatis. In the old text on Indian music, there are mentioned 10 characteristics or the principles to sing these jatis, which were known as 10 lakshans of ancient Jati Gayan. So now, arriving at our next question, which is about 10 lakshans of Jati Gayan. 10 lakshans or 10 principles of Jati Gayan have been explained in Bharat's Natya Shastra. In the ancient times, these principles were followed strictly to sing these jatis. In Bharat's Natya Shastra, these Dash Lakshans have been mentioned as Grahanshotar Mandrocha, Nyasopnyas Evcha, Alpatvacha Bahutumcha, Shadv Orvite Tatha. Which means, Jatis had 10 Lakshans or principles, namely Graha, Ansh, Mandra, Tar, Nyas, Apnyas, Alpatva, Bahutva, Shadvatva and Odvatva. The above said 10 Lakshans were followed very strictly in the ancient Jati Gayan. Or we can say the singing of the ancient Jatis was done according to these principles. So it is essential to know these principles one by one. First is Graha. As already stated, Graha was one of the 10 principles or the Dash Lakshans of Jati Gayan. The note with which Jati began was called Graha. Graha was the note from where the singing was started. Usually, the Anshswar of any Jati was Grahaswar 2 or the beginning note also. In Bharat's Jatis, there used to be more than one as Anshswar. Amongst those from which note the singing of Jati was started was known as Grahaswar of that particular Jati. In present Rag Gayan system, though we follow some old principles, yet the principle of Grahaswar does not carry any significance. Shadaj or Sa has become the keynote in every rag. Hence, it is the beginning note in the present Rag Gayan. Though in some rags we do not begin with Sa, we start with Ni. For example, in Rag Yaman, instead of singing Sa Re Ga Ma, we sing Ni Re Ga Ma. There are many other rags in Hindustani music, for example, Purya Kalyan, Purya Dhanashri, etc., in which we begin with Ni instead of Sa. But even then, we cannot say that Sa is not used in such rags or Sa is omitted in these rags. In fact, Sa can never be omitted in any Hindustani rag. Though the chalan of particular rag or the singing of particular rag is with Ni, but the keynote is Shadaj or Sa. The next term is Ansh. Ansh is another very significant principle of ancient Jati Gayan. Ansh was the main note and the maximum used note in Jati Gayan. Bharat, in his Natya Shastra, has mentioned the 10 characteristics of Anshswar, which used to make it the main note of the Jati. Matang, in his Pradeshi, has used the term Ansh in the sense of toning or the bass note. Sharangdev, the author of Sangeet Ratnakar, on the other hand, identifies the Ansh, the main note, with the sonant, the Wadi. Anshswar of Jati may be compared to the Wadi Swar of the present Rag Gayan. As the Wadi Swar is the main note of any rag, so was the Anshswar as the predominant note in the Jati. Wadi Swar is the maximum used note. That is why Wadi Swar has been defined as the king of notes. It has been mentioned in our Sanskrit text. Prayoge Bohle Swar Vadi Rajayatra Giyate. Vadi Swar helps in revealing a rag. The rags having similar swars are distinguished with Vadi Swar. Hence, Vadiswar is the most important swar of any rag even today, as Anshwar was in old Jati Gayan. So the principle of Anshwar is followed even today in the form of Vadiswar. About the description of Graha and Anshwar, musicologist Alain Denelou has mentioned in his book The Rags of Northern Indian Music, published in 1968 in London, that in ancient music, 3 notes are referred to under the names of Ansh, Graha and Nyas. The use of the term Graha and Ansh is a little confusing, for their meaning is variously interpreted by the authors of different periods. Some understand the initial note, Graha, to be the first note of the mode, that is the tonic. Others consider it to be the first note of the melody, which may well be any note. But this last interpretation seems hardly justified. Similarly, the main note, Ansh, is taken to mean sometimes the tonic and sometimes the predominant note, the sonant or Vadi. The most ancient authors seems to have used the word in the first sense. Thus, the Natya Shastra explains the word Graha as being synonymous with Ansh and meaning the tonic. From the above mentioned description of Alain Denelou, it may be concluded that in Jati Gayan, the initial note was Grahaswar and the main note was taken as Anshwar. The next terms are Nyas and Apnyas. The note on which Jati Gayan was ended was known as Nyaswar, or by Nyas is understood the note that ends a song. Bharat, in his Natya Shastra, has not explained in detail about Nyas, Apnyas, Sanyas and Vinyas notes, etc. Dattil in his Dattilam and Matang in his Bradeshi had mentioned about these terms. According to Dattilam, the note on which Jati Gayan was ended was known as Nyaswar. The end note of the middle part of Prabandh, Vastu and Rupa Gayan was known as Apnyas. The difference between Nyas and Apnyas note may be understood in this manner, that the ending note of the Jati was Nyaswar and the ending note of the middle part was known as Apnyaswar. Except Nyas and Apnyas, there were other terms like Sanyas and Vinyas. The ending note of the first subpart of the first part was Sanyas, whereas the ending note of the first part was known as Vinyaswar. It may be understood like this. In the present day Rag Gayan, in any bandish, if sthai is of first part and sthai is of 4 lines, then the end note of the first line is Sanyas and the end note of the 4th line of the sthai may be said it's Vinyaswar. In the present day Rag Gayan, we do follow certain principles, but we do not follow the Nyas and Apnyas principles of Jati Gayan at all. Though nowadays the term Nyas is in use, but it is used in the different sense. Graha, Ansh and Nyas, these are 3 lakshans or the principles among Dash lakshans of ancient Jati Gayan. Graha and Nyas do not carry their old significance. Though Grahaswar may be compared with Sa, which is the keynote in every rag. Ansh may be compared with present Vadiswar of rags. And though the term Nyasa is used, but it carries a different meaning in the present day Rag Gayan. Except these three Lakshans, we need to know the remaining Lakshans of Jati Gayan too, because these occupy an important place in the present day Rag Gayan in some way or the other. So let's know in brief about these terms too. Mantra and Tar. Mantra note was to denote the approach of Jati to a particular note of the lower octave. It was determined on the basis of 3 points, that is, up to Anshswar, up to Nyaswar, and up to Apnyaswar. Similarly, Tars were denoted the approach of Jati to the particular note of upper octave. Tar note was determined up to 4th, 5th or up to 7th note of Anshswar. The next terms are Alpatva and Bahatva. These two terms were used for the minimum and the maximum use of particular notes in Jati. The less or the minimum use of any note in Jati was known as Alpatva. And on the contrary, the maximum use of any note in a Jati was known as Bahatva. Alpatva and Bahatva, these two principles are followed even today in the present day Rag Gayan. There are two ways to exercise Alpatva and Bahatva both in a Rag. Alpatva can be practiced by Langhan and Anabhyas. In Langhan exercise, the note is omitted while singing or passed over to the next note and leaving the note in between. While in Anabhyas, the particular swar is not practiced again and again. These are the two ways to show the minimum use of any note in any rag. Like Alpatva, Bahatva too can be practiced in two ways. Contrary to Alpatva, Bahatva of notes can be shown by Alanghan and Abhyas. In Alanghan Bahatva, the note is never omitted while singing, or it is mandatory to take that note. In Abhyas Bahatva, the note is repeated again and again to show its maximum use, just like Anshswar of Jati or the Vadiswar of a rag. The next terms are Shadvatva and Odvatva. Shadvatva and Odvatva indicated the number of notes used in a jati. The jati in which 6 notes were used in ascent and descent was known as Shadvatva, omitting 1 note of the octave. The jatis in which 2 notes of the octave were omitted and only 5 notes were used in their ascent and descent was called Odvatva. Shadvatva and Odvatva, these two principles are very well followed in the present day rag gayan. In fact, the hexatonic and the pentatonic rags are based upon these principles. The above said Dash Lakshans of Jati Gayan, or the 10 principles to sing jatis in the ancient times, are mentioned in the old texts. Though Jati Gayan system was in vogue in the ancient period, yet its popularity was decreasing during the time of Matang in the 7th century. As the Rag Gayan system started gaining popularity, it became obsolete automatically. When Rag system came into existence, initially rags are said to be produced from murchanas like jatis. But with the replacement of jatis with rags and murchanas with males and thereafter thats, the old system of gram murchana and jati gayan went off automatically. Present-day Indian music is based upon Rag Gayan or rags. Rag Gayan too is erected upon some strict principles, and while performing, we have to follow these principles laid down for it. Some of these principles are among the 10 Lakshans or the principles of Jati Gayan. But the principles like Graha, Nyasa and Apnyas do not carry their old significance in the present day Rag Gayan. While concluding, we can say that Graha, Ansha and Nyasa was the terminology of ancient Jati Gayan, which is not in use nowadays. Present day music is based upon Rag Gayan. In fact, Rag Gayan may be said to be originated from the ancient Jati Gayan. We can say the term Jati Gayan antedates males, thoughts and rags of present Hindustani music. It may be said the ancient names of present rags. Similarly, Graha, Ansha and Nyasa are the ancient names of some of the principles of the present Rag Gayan. Thank you.